The roar of voices in the student center echoed like a stadium, but all I heard was the sound of her laughter. Not the kind I fell for, the warm, nervous giggle she had when I first asked her out, but a sharp, cruel laugh that stung worse than any bruise. I froze outside the glass doors. Inside, she sat surrounded by them. Not one. Not two. 5 different guys. Each leaning in, touching her arm, whispering things in her ear. And she let them. She smiled like she was queen of the world, and I was the fool who still carried her books yesterday. "Ryan, you coming in?" my friend shouted from down the hall. But my legs wouldn't move. My chest tightened, like the air had been ripped out of me. One of the guys leaned in and kissed her cheek. Another reached for her hand. I saw her pull out her phone and type, smiling wickedly. A second later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. "Stop following me. You're pathetic." Her words lit up on the screen. I stood there, humiliated, invisible, while the whole room seemed to turn and look at me. My heart slammed like a war drum. My name is Ryan Porter. I am 30 years old, and my ex cheated on me with 5 different guys at once. If you're watching this, drop a comment, hit like and subscribe, because what I'm about to share isn't just about betrayal, it's about how success became my revenge when every other weapon failed. Back then, I was just a college junior in a mid-sized town in Ohio. My family didn't have much. Dad was a mechanic, grease on his hands, never enough time at home. Mom was a nurse who worked double shifts and collapsed on the couch every weekend. My older brother, Dan, thought I was soft because I liked books more than football. And my little sister, Carrie, was the only one who believed I was destined for more. "Don't let them crush you," Carrie whispered the night I found her smoking out on the porch. She was only 16, too sharp for her age. "One day, you'll be the one walking away." Her faith burned in me when everything else turned cold. I'd been dating Emily, yeah, that was her name, for almost 2 years when it all crumbled. At first, I thought she was stressed about classes, or maybe about her parents' messy divorce. She stopped calling as much, stopped showing up to study sessions, always had an excuse. Until the day my best friend pulled me aside and muttered, "Man, you should know, she's not just with one guy. She's seeing half the basketball team." I laughed in his face. "No way. She wouldn't." But then I saw it with my own eyes in that student center. The way she moved between them like she was choosing courses off a menu. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, heart shattered. My phone buzzed again. This time, her message read, "Don't embarrass yourself. You'll never make it past community college. You're not worth anyone's time." The words cut deeper than the betrayal, because they sounded like my father. I remembered one night years ago, Dad stumbling in after midnight, oil stains on his shirt, grumbling when he saw me studying at the table. "Books won't feed you, Ryan. You're just wasting your time." But Mom had leaned over me, her hand on my shoulder, and whispered, "Prove him wrong." I carried that whisper like a torch. So I made a decision. No screaming matches. No begging. No chasing her through hallways. I went silent. I poured everything into my grades, my part-time job at the grocery store, every extra shift I could grab. I stopped checking her social media, even when friends shoved their phones in my face, showing pictures of her draped across different guys each weekend. It hurt just. God, it hurt. But I let the pain sharpen me instead of break me. Still, my family wasn't perfect. Dan mocked me constantly. "You're wasting your 20s studying while she's out living life. Grow a backbone, man." He smirked, never knowing the fire already burning in me. Mom worried I was shutting down too much. "You don't talk anymore, Ryan," she said gently one evening. "Don't let her steal your voice." And Carrie, loyal Carrie, sat beside me while I crammed for finals. She never said much, just slid me coffee and whispered, "Keep going." Graduation day loomed closer with every sleepless night. I could see the finish line. My degree, my job offer already lined up, the chance to step into the world with my head high. But Emily? Her path was different. Rumors spread fast. She started skipping classes, missing exams. Professors whispered about plagiarism. By spring, her GPA was barely scraping above 1.8. And then the whispers became fact. She was dropping out. I'll never forget the morning of graduation rehearsal. I walked into the auditorium in my cap and gown, nerves buzzing in my chest. She was there in the back, not wearing a gown, just sitting with crossed arms, glaring like she hated every ounce of success shining from me. Our eyes locked. For the first time, she didn't laugh. She looked small. But that wasn't enough. Not yet. Because while she had shattered my heart, I had built something stronger in its place. And when the final day came, with families crowding the seats and names echoing across the stage, I knew my revenge would not be in words. It would be in silence. The silence of success. When they called my name, I stood tall, diploma in hand, the crowd cheering. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her in the stands, biting her lip, her so-called friends nowhere in sight. The applause drowned everything else out. But I wasn't finished yet, because walking off that stage was just the beginning. The cheers from graduation rehearsal still rang in my ears as I walked home that night. My diploma wasn't in my hand yet, but I felt it, like a weapon forged in silence. I'd taken every ounce of humiliation she threw at me and turned it into fuel. But fuel burns, and it doesn't burn clean. At home, dinner was tense. Dad sat at the head of the table, nursing a beer. Mom tried to smooth things over with small talk, asking about my plans after graduation. Dan leaned back in his chair, arms folded, smirk plastered across his face. So, you think a piece of paper makes you better than the rest of us? Dan asked, his voice laced with bitterness. I gripped my fork tighter. It's not about being better. It's about not giving up. Sounds like bragging to me, he muttered. Mom sighed. Please, not tonight. Ryan's worked hard. But Dad cut in, his voice gravel. Hard work is fixing engines until your hands bleed. Not sitting in classrooms listening to some professor tell you how the world works. I stared at him, heat rising in my chest. At least I won't be breaking my back for minimum wage 30 years from now. The words slipped out before I could stop them. The table went silent. Dad's jaw tightened. Dan smirked wider. And Mom's eyes filled with tears. Carrie, loyal as always, reached under the table and squeezed my hand. A silent reminder, don't let them break you. That night, lying awake, I thought about betrayal, not just Emily's, but my family's too. The way Dad dismissed me. The way Dan mocked me. Even Mom, with her constant worrying, felt like a weight I had to carry. But Carrie, she was my anchor. I remembered one winter night when I was 14, the power had gone out. Dad cursed the electric company, Mom lit candles, Dan stormed out to meet friends. Carrie sat with me on the floor, her breath clouding in the cold. She whispered, one day, you'll leave this house and prove all of them wrong. Don't stop dreaming, Ryan. That memory kept me warm long after the lights came back. Meanwhile, Emily was unraveling. Word around campus was she'd been caught cheating on another exam. The guys she juggled one by one started dropping her, moving on. By March, her once perfect Instagram feed went quiet. No more staged photos of nights out. Just silence. But I wasn't gloating. Not yet. Because my revenge wasn't just about her downfall, it was about building my rise. My job offer came in April, an entry-level analyst role at a finance firm downtown. Nothing glamorous, but it was a foot in the door. When I told my family, the reactions split clean. Mom's eyes shone with pride. Ryan, I knew you could do it. Dad grunted. Don't forget where you came from. Dan rolled his eyes. Wow, an office monkey. Congratulations. Carrie hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I told you, she whispered. You're going to make it. Their words etched into me. Support, resentment, indifference. A reminder that family can be both blessing and curse. But fate wasn't done testing me. A letter arrived in May. It was from my grandfather's lawyer. Grandpa had passed the year before, leaving behind a modest inheritance. His house, his savings, a small plot of land. And now the lawyer was calling a family meeting to discuss the division. The air grew thick in our living room that night. The house should go to me, Dan insisted. I'm the oldest. That's tradition. Dad shook his head. Your grandfather wanted it split. Mom tried to mediate. Please, let's just hear the lawyer out. But I stayed silent, listening as they bickered. I didn't need the house. I didn't even need the money. What I needed was to see the truth, how greed and pride could twist even family into enemies. Carrie looked at me from across the room, her expression saying everything. Don't become like them. Meanwhile, Emily tried crawling back. One evening as I studied at the library, my phone buzzed with a message I hadn't expected. Can we talk? I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. Against my better judgment, I replied, about what? She showed up 20 minutes later, hair a mess, eyes rimmed with red. Nothing like the confident girl who once paraded 5 guys in front of me. I messed up, she whispered. I didn't know what I had until it was gone. I laughed bitterly. You had me. You had loyalty, love, patience. You traded it for attention. Tears welled in her eyes. I was scared, Ryan. Everyone around me wanted something. I thought, if I kept all of them close, I'd never be alone. Her words cut, because I understood that fear. But fear doesn't excuse betrayal. You left me bleeding, Emily, I said quietly. Not just once. Every time you looked at them and not me. Every time you laughed at me behind my back. She reached for my hand. Give me one more chance. I pulled away. I already did. And you burned it. I walked out of that library with my head high. For the first time, I felt the shift. Not just surviving her betrayal, but overcoming it. Still, revenge wasn't finished. Because graduation was coming, and the world would see. The morning of the ceremony, the sky was clear, the air buzzing with anticipation. My family argued in the car, Dad grumbling about parking, Dan mocking the gowns, Mom fussing over my tie. Carrie sat beside me, her hand resting on mine. You ready? She asked. More than ready, I said. As we pulled into campus, I spotted Emily. No cap. No gown. Just standing on the sidelines watching everyone else prepare. Our eyes met for a brief second and she looked away. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just kept walking. Because today wasn't about her. It was about me. When they lined us up, I felt the weight of every sleepless night, every insult, every betrayal pressing down on me. But it didn't crush me. It forged me. The dean stepped to the microphone, calling names one by one. My heart raced. My palms sweated. And when my name echoed through the auditorium, the roar of applause thundered in my ears. I walked across the stage, head high, diploma in hand. And from the corner of my eye, I saw her. Alone. But as I walked off that stage, I knew this was just the surface. Because true revenge doesn't end with applause. It ends with legacy. And I was just getting started. The applause faded, but the echo of my footsteps lingered long after I left that stage. My diploma felt heavier than paper. It was proof that silence and focus could be sharper than any blade. I stepped out into the sunlight, cap in hand, my family waiting. Mom's eyes were shining, pride written in every line of her face. Carrie hugged me so tightly I thought she'd never let go. Even Dad, gruff and unreadable, gave a small nod that meant more than words. Then, he smirked, clapped my shoulder and muttered, "Guess you proved me wrong." That was enough. But the day wasn't over. From the corner of my eye, I saw Emily lingering at the edge of the crowd. No gown. No diploma. Just standing there like an outsider at her own funeral. Her eyes searched mine, pleading, but I gave her nothing. Not a word. Not a glance that would give her power. I walked past her, my silence louder than any insult. Life moved fast after that. My new job started within weeks. Early mornings, late nights, endless spreadsheets. But I didn't mind. Every long hour was another brick in the wall I was building between who I had been and who I was becoming. Still, family chaos found its way in. The inheritance fight boiled over when the lawyer called us back to finalize the will. Grandpa had left his savings to be divided equally, but the house was left to me. His note was short, typed in shaky hands, to Ryan, who never stopped studying. Build a future here. The room erupted. Dan slammed his fist on the table. This is garbage. I'm the oldest. That house should be mine. Dad barked. Respect your grandfather's wishes. Mom tried to mediate again, but her voice was drowned out. Dan turned to me, face red. You think you're better than us because you kissed up to him with your books? You're nothing, Ryan. I stared at him, calm. I didn't ask for it. He gave it to me because he saw something in me you refused to. Carrie placed her hand on mine, steadying me. Grandpa believed in you, Ryan. Don't waste this chance. Her loyalty steadied me through the storm. While my family fractured, Emily crumbled. Rumors swirled. She couldn't keep a steady job, flunked her last attempt at classes, and the guys she once flaunted had all disappeared. I heard she moved back in with her mother, who never forgave her for the scandal at the fundraiser. One night, she showed up outside my new place. I heard the knock, opened the door, and there she was, hair disheveled, eyes hollow. Please, she whispered. I need you. You're the only one who ever cared. For a moment, I saw the girl I had once loved. The girl who held my hand under cafeteria tables, who whispered dreams of a future together. But then, like lightning, I remembered her laugh in the student center. The 5 men. The text, "You're pathetic." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. You're right about one thing, I said. I did care. More than anyone. But you killed it. And I buried it. Her eyes filled with tears. Can't you forgive me? I shook my head. Forgiveness isn't revenge. Success is. And I already got mine. I walked back inside. She didn't knock again. Months rolled into years. My career climbed. Promotions came, slow at first, then faster. I learned to lead, to shoulder responsibility. And every milestone reminded me, revenge didn't need to be loud. It just needed to be undeniable. But scars don't fade. Some nights, I woke to the sound of phantom laughter, her voice echoing in my dreams. I'd sit up, breathing hard, until the dark silence reminded me I was free. On those nights, I'd walk through the old house Grandpa left me. The floors creaked, the walls carried his memory, and in the quiet I felt his faith. You proved them wrong, I whispered to the empty rooms. One evening, Carrie came by, now in college herself. She sat at the kitchen table, grinning. Guess what? I'm declaring my major, psychology. I want to help people who get torn down like you did. I smiled. That's perfect, Carrie. You've always been the strong one. She shook her head. No, you taught me strength. Her words hit harder than any applause. Years later, I heard Emily had left town completely. No one knew where. Some said she was working odd jobs out west. Others said she married quick and quiet, trying to bury her past. I didn't care, because her chapter in my life had already closed. On the 10th anniversary of my graduation, I stood at the podium of my old college, invited back to speak. The auditorium was packed with students in gowns, restless with nerves and hope. I looked out over them, remembering my own shaking hands, my own broken heart. My story isn't about perfection, I began. It's about betrayal. About being laughed at, called useless, discarded. It's about standing silent while others mocked you. And then, proving them wrong by surviving, thriving, and walking forward. The students leaned in, some nodding, some tearing up. If you're watching this, I added, smiling at the familiar words, drop a comment, hit like and subscribe. Because success isn't revenge, it's survival with teeth. The hall erupted with applause. And in that roar I felt whole. That night, I stood on the porch of Grandpa's house, now mine forever, the city lights stretching in the distance. My scars hadn't vanished, but they had shaped me. Emily had taken pieces of me, but in losing them, I had built something unbreakable. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. Looking back now, I realize betrayal doesn't just break you in the moment, it carves scars you carry long after the person is gone. For years, I thought revenge had to be fire, had to be loud, had to match the cruelty I'd endured. But I was wrong. The cleanest revenge wasn't in shouting her name or throwing her sins back in her face. It was in building a life she could never touch again. Every diploma, every paycheck, every small victory became a stone in the foundation of my freedom. And as I rose, she fell. Not because I pushed her, but because she had built her world on lies, and lies always collapse. Family betrayal, her cruelty, my brother's jealousy, all of it tried to crush me. But in the end, it was my sister's loyalty, my grandfather's faith, and my own refusal to quit that carried me forward. So, if you've ever been betrayed, hear this: don't waste your energy screaming at the ruins. Build higher. Build stronger. Because nothing silences betrayal louder than success that speaks for itself. Success is the only answer they can't deny.